everyone. Joe Fury here for Lunch Therapy. Welcome everyone to Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy. Today is Interview Friday and I'm coming to you all the way from Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Singapore. Yes, today we have the incredible guest, Dan Rosenberg. And Dan and I used to go clubbing way back in the day. And when I say clubbing, I don't mean going to the comedy clubs, I mean actual clubbing. We used to hit each other with clubs. That was fun back then. Anyway, welcome to Lunch Therapy. So great to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show. Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy, Interview Friday. Welcome everybody to Lunch Therapy. Today is Interview Friday. I'm so lucky to have Joe Fury introduce the show. I don't know. I don't know how I got so blessed, but it's just amazing. It's amazing. And I don't usually like to drop names, but when he drops in, it just feels good, you know? Another person that I want y'all to know about here is Richard Gaddis. Richard Gaddis is having a show on Saturday, March 23rd. 7:30 p.m. Doors open at 6:30. It is at the Saint and Sinner Club there in Studio Hollywood. No, North Hollywood, California. I go as often as I can to see this show because he's a dynamite singer and a really great show person. Yes, that's how we say it now. Let's get into this thing called Lunch Therapy Interview. All right, so behind me you see some trash pandas doing their thing. I just wanted to, give you some furry friends just in the beginning of the show. So glad to be here on Interview Friday. And I want to thank all the Patreons for the show. These are our Patreons: Mike Knox, Todd Lee, Robert Lopez, Jay Patterson, Pam Palmieri, Neil Phillip, Seth Word, the amazing Seth Word, and the amazing Mary Marks. Thank you all for supporting the show. This is a show that's been on since that old pandemic rolled around. We've been going for 4 years strong. On Fridays, we do interviews with extraordinary individuals, and today is no exception. We got comedian Dan Rosenberg on the show, all the way from Seattle, Washington, or more specifically, Bainbridge Island, out there in the middle of the Puget Sound, where I'm from, which I actually was born in Puget Sound and came up from the depths and just appeared one day. It was weird. It's a weird way to enter the earth, but that's the way I did it. Then went straight to Edmonds, Washington, which is, of course, the vortex of the comedy world. Many of you know that. Anyway, let's get into some healing vibrations and breathe. Clearly, I need to get some oxygen to my brain. Let's do it. At the top of the show, we always breathe, and we oftentimes breathe with this gentleman in the back here. Yes, he is the healing vibration god. He brings healing vibrations to us while we breathe. His name is Travis Schumacher. He's one of my favorite people from Linwood, Washington. This is a big Washington, Seattle area show today, even though I'm in Los Angeles, suffering through the nice weather. Let's see if we got a cam. No, we don't have any kind of cam to show it to you. But anyway, in through the nose. Hey, Mama J. Mama J is from the Netflix show The Trust. She has joined us here today. She's an incredible comedian. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. That's cool. Let it go. That's a drum. Water drum. Is that what he said? I don't know. In through the nose, out through the toes. Let it go. Gently crashing ashore. I don't know if that's a typo or if that's a thing. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. All right. Feeling pretty relaxed. Mama J says, you make me blush. You make me blush, Mama J. Especially when you're with your filthy mouth. Every once in a while, she'll get on here and say something just filthy. I'm making that up. It's not true. Totally not true. All right, let's get on with this thing. We got to do one more thing, which is a little bit of music. This is Marcel Hutter and Helene Eckerstorfer. Some of the best handpan, hung drum players out there. I always like to relax the guest, relax the viewers. Mama J, big nasty Mama J. Yep. You're going to love the guest today, Mama J. Super interesting person. All right, so if you want to check out more handpan music from Marcel Hutter and Helene Eckerstorfer, head on over to Marcel Hutter's YouTube page, subscribe, like, hit the little bell. Heck, do it here too if you're not subscribed. That's always fun. All right, let's get into this thing. So Dan Rosenberg, many of you know who he is. He is he's been in the entertainment business for 30 years. He's a seasoned comedian, writer, MC. He's a radio host. He wrote a book on emceeing, which is cool. He's been in, the Laugh Factory and the Improv and all the Hollywood places. He lived down here in Santa Monica at some point. He's also been featured in the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal, Las Vegas, Boston, New Orleans, which is like a big honor. Does radio up there in Seattle, but also in Los Angeles for CBS Radio. He was on the National Lampoon Radio, which is on SiriusXM. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's inappropriate these days, but I love National Lampoon. Always have. I used to read the little magazine. I remember one time we were reading an article in there. This is a side note. And the guy was talking about how he squeezed fruit pies at the 7-Eleven and hauled ass. Hauled ass. That was one of our favorite phrases. Hauling ass. I learned it, there at National Lampoon. I don't know. Hoy Camila Lopez. Jay, I owe you a call. See, sometimes people just cross-talk, which is great. It's community, it's community we live in. We're all interconnected. There's some crazy interconnection going on with all the people in this chat room, so I love it. We'll talk more about that later. But right now we're talking about Dan Rosenberg, and I am got to read his book on how to be an MC because I'm clearly blowing this intro. Dan's debut comedy album was called Dan Rosenberg Overexposed. It went straight to the top of Amazon immediately. You can check it out there. You can rent it for 99 cents. You can also buy it. You can keep it under your pillow in the bed. That's what I do. He also wrote, as I said before, the book on hosting, How Not to Suck as an MC. God, I got to get this thing, put it in my library really soon. I only got up to step 10. And currently, Dan, when one of the things that's said in step 10 is don't make the intro about yourself. And I got to work on that. Currently, Dan is working in post-production on a sitcom pilot with Rick Springfield, whom I love. I know his son, one of my favorite actors. His son is an unbelievable actor, and I don't know, not enough people know about this. But Liam is his name. And anyway, the show is executive produced by industry veteran Barry Katz, whom we love also on this show. Check out his episode sometime when you're not checking out this one, because now we're getting into the Interview Friday.
I stayed at one place, and they had like a big duck pond, and the hotel's ducks everywhere. And I get to my room, and there's a sign on my door. And at first, I took it kind of personal, but then I noticed they put this sign on every door. And it said, "Attention all guests, the fine for kicking ducks will now be $15. I'm like, will now be? Did it go up or down? I mean, is this a sale? Are you trying to get rid of ducks? Or it used to be like a buck a duck maybe or something before. And they changed it, so now they're trying to start. I went down to the front desk, go, yeah, the sign, I got a question. So this $15, is this per duck or per kick? Because if it's per kick, I ought to get my ducks in a row, you know what I'm saying? That's where that term came from.
All right.
Hey.
Yes.
Wow. Look at us.
I know. It's so
Floating
good.
around.
This is great. I love it.
This is amazing.
I love it when we can go out there and bathe in this is where I came from. Puget Sound. I just came right out of the ocean, and here I am again. It's great.
Yeah, I'm new here. I've been here 15 years, so
15?
I wasn't born in this beautiful watery. It's like a hot tub lunch we're doing.
It's so
Except
good
it's
out
very,
here.
very cold and deep.
Oh, I just stepped on a Dungeness crab.
Wow.
I hope I'm not going to get Ebola.
You might end up near Squim.
Squim. Well, at least you know how to pronounce the names up there. In your 15
I learned
years.
finally. Not Sequium.
You never said Sequium. Yeah.
I can almost say Puyallup.
Oh, yeah, that's a rough one. You know, I spent Puyallup. I used to go to Squim to see the animals. I don't know if you know about this, but back then, the bear from Grizzly Adams, the television show, used to live in Squim.
His name was Dan Haggerty.
Dan Haggerty was the other fellow.
Oh, he wasn't
the other bear. That's the other bear. This was
Greg Evigan.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, that was BJ and the Bear.
Oh my God, you're good. You're good.
Wow.
I love it. I love your references. BJ and the Bear. Who knows? That was Every Which Way But Loose, right?
Exactly.
I was just being the monkey whose name was
Puddles. I don't know. You got me.
Somebody knows in the chat room, I'm sure. Somebody knows. Welcome to Lunch Therapy. It's so great to have you here.
I'm very relaxed. Thank you for doing the whole breathing. I've been doing the breathing through the nose. I've been doing the mouth tape sometimes at night to force things through my nose.
Is that a thing?
Oh, there's a book called Breathe. Is it Breathe or Breath? It's called Breath.
I read that because my mother recommended it to me, and I read it, but I guess I didn't absorb it.
Talks about mouth tape, and there's like this. I use one now. It's called hostage tape. I'm not giving I'm not giving a plug for them, but they call it, and it's like this big black tape you put over your mouth. And the guy was kind of funny in the book when he talks about taping your mouth, because he used tape, and originally he had a small square, and he said, make sure you don't put it right under your nose, because that looks like Hitler. You have to make sure it covers. your mouth.
Okay.
But
But they do
yeah,
say
so
it's much better to breathe through your nose because it warms the air properly, it filters it properly. But a lot of it's about warming the air, right?
yeah. And it's also, but see, I heard contradictory things during COVID that you want to breathe through your mouth, not your nose, because COVID travels into your nose. That's why they were shoving things up your nose.
Who was shoving things up my nose?
When they would check for COVID.
Oh, of course.
Initially, I luckily never had one of those tests. I got in,
The PCR.
I waited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I waited until it was just do it yourself around here. None
I
of the
love it
shoving
when
up
they shove it like
touching your
touches
brain.
your brain. Yeah. We said that at the same time almost.
Yeah.
Okay. First question is, what does 147 mean? What's that about?
So years ago, when I had a show on CBS Radio, which I don't even know what the company's called now. It was Audacity. I don't know what they call themselves.
Yeah.
But in Los Angeles on Wilshire, when it was 97.1, the FM talk station, I did a show called Car Calls, and it was me and a comedian named James Harris. I don't know if you know James Harris or not.
No.
He knows nothing about cars, so I thought it'd be funny to have him on the show.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm the same.
And the first, then we brought this young guy named Chris Edling, who was an awesome guy that's going to be our producer. And I said, hey, you want to meet us before the show? We'll be at the Starbucks on Wilshire, right across from the studio. He said, yeah, what time do you want me there? And just randomly, I go, 1:47, don't be a minute late. And he literally walked in, and I said, but don't be early either. He walked in right at 1:47. And from that day forward, I see that number every day, at least once somewhere. I see it on a street sign, or I get a phone number and somebody, gives me the number, and I look at the clock and it just happens to be 1:47. The TV show Fringe. I know that's a weird one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Opening episode. There's 147 passengers on the airplane that crashes, and they use that number a lot.
Really?
And so when I was writing the sitcom, there's a scene where my character is obsessed with this girl, Leah, and he says to his best friend, I'm always seeing our number everywhere. And the friend's like, what 147? He goes, what couple has a number? Couples
nobody has a number.
They don't have a number. And I'm like, well, a song is also referred to as a number sometimes. There's an old number from so-and-so.
Yeah.
And so when we were doing some of the screenings, the test screenings, I went back to Pittsburgh to show one of them. And a buddy of mine we're at the mall. He's like, you should get a hat with the 147. So that's where the
It's
147
super.
came.
I love it. And it's also a conversation starter. Yeah.
Yes.
You're okay. So you're originally from Pittsburgh. My parents are from Pittsburgh and they moved to Seattle.
Wow. We have so many tie-ins here.
It's really crazy.
Yeah, how have we not met a million times before?
I know. It's weird.
What part of Pittsburgh?
They live right in Pittsburgh called Sheridan. It was called. It's like a part of Pittsburgh.
That's a hotel.
Yeah, well, that's what they call it. I don't know why they call it Sheridan, but there's a place called Middletown Road. That's where all my relatives live.
Middletown. That's right in the middle of the town. I know
It is.
that. I know
It is though. It's really it's like right across the bridge. Well, there's a lot of bridges in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were right there in Pittsburgh, and
Yeah, my mom grew up in Squirrel Hill, which means she's Jewish.
Squirrel.
And my dad grew up in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, which is known for being the home of Joe Namath.
Oh yeah.
And I left when I was 22 to be famous in LA, and then when I was 23, there was a huge earthquake, and I ran back. The 94 Northridge quake scared me to death.
The Northridge. That was scary, huh?
Yeah,
I was here for that. It was crazy.
I lived in Encino.
Oh, you did? I lived in
one town away.
Santa Clarita. But we happened to be on a place that was pretty solid rock, so I didn't even notice. I remember I woke up and I was like, oh, I bet that's what an earthquake would be like. That was what my thought.
I was out until about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Doing comedy at this little, what was it called? Gallagher's Pub not in Northridge, in Chatsworth. And a good friend of mine, Dave Dennison, who now owns Laughs Comedy Club here in Seattle, introduced me to the Howard Stern show that night. That's how I remember it so well. Because he's like, you should hear this guy. He comes on at 3 a.m. on this radio station. So I heard Howard Stern for the first time. And I got home at like 4:31 a.m. I felt like somebody came in my room and was lifting my bed and just slamming my bed up and down.
God. Yeah.
And
weird.
At first I wasn't fazed by it. I'm like, oh, it's an earthquake. Okay, great. But then my aunt and uncle who had lived there since the 70s were like, no, that was big. Like that scared them. And once I saw them freaked out, I'm like, all right, I don't need fame and fortune. I'm going back to Pittsburgh.
I was having
And
a party that
ran.
day. I was having a party and I was really upset that no one showed up. Then I found out a lot of people couldn't even open their door. My friend had a television attack him. It was crazy. ZHVV1 says, what's the best joke he ever made? When I'm thinking maybe that's you.
I guess, well, we could each tell that if you want, but
Okay.
One of my favorites, and somebody asked me this the other day, where I'm kind of ranking all my stuff right now as I prepare for this next special I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm redoing my special, actually. I'm
Oh.
doing a lot of this. I'll explain that in a minute.
Okay.
But one of my early jokes was I only date waitresses because I don't know if you know this, but if you marry a waitress and get divorced, you only have to give her 15%. And now, of course, that's 15%. That means you're a horrible tipper now.
Yeah.
So
exactly. That's what I was wondering.
Rewrite the joke. Now it's got to be 20%. And then if you have a party of 6 or more, you've got to give 25 automatically added. There's a lot of other tipping jokes that could go, but that was one of my early jokes.
ZHVV1 loves it. Loves that joke.
I got a ha ha ha.
Yeah, I love it. I love
That's a good pH level right there.
It's really good. So can you tell me why you're redoing your show?
So when I did the first special in 2019, or as we like to call it, PC, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
The theater, I was on the board, and I'm back on the board of this local theater. It's a great theater. It's like a 250 seat theater, and they were doing a capital campaign to build a new theater. And I'm not loaded, and I can't just write a check and say, okay, here, I'm going to donate a bunch of money. So what I said was, how about I do a comedy show, and we'll do tiered pricing. So it'll be $25, and you get a ticket. For $50, you get a ticket, and you get a thank you in the credits.
Oh, yeah.
And for $100, we had all this tiered stuff, and we ended up making $5,500 for the theater that night. But I had an all volunteer staff, and we shot it, on DSLRs, because the camera technology, I feel like during the pandemic went crazy. Like 6K stuff started coming out, and Blackmagic became huge, and cameras got more affordable. So we shot it, and one of the cameras errored out. I'll call it that. There was an error with the camera, and it overexposed the main shot of me.
Is that why you did black and white? Or am I killing the punchline of this joke?
Well, so a good friend of mine, Richard Malzahn, who's a big Hollywood guy, he did a ton of visual effects. If you look at him on IMDb, did over 100 movies. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, he did all the visual effects for that.
Oh, wow. And also Return of the Jedi. Bang.
Yes. That was his first movie ever worked on.
Yes.
He started at the top. There's nowhere to go when you start at the top.
No.
But he kind of directed it for me, and he helped coordinate it, and he was going to do the edit. And he called me up the first day. He goes, one of the cameras, we have no footage we can use here. And I go, well, what do you mean? Can't you color correct it? And he's like, there's no data. We didn't shoot it in RAW because that didn't exist on a cheap camera. So he said, here, let me send you what I think we should do. And then he said, let's just shoot it.
It looks great, though. I think it looks great.
It worked okay. We had so many glitches that night. We had the soundboard operator forgot to turn the audience up. So when I got the first cut of the audio, there's no laughter. It's just me.
Yeah.
Ironically, the good audio we got came out of the camera that had the crappy picture. So we did get good audio because we had that camera sitting in the audience. So he was literally like fifth row up center, and that was the shot. And so we decided to call it overexposed because the shot was overexposed. We converted to black and white.
Oh, that's why it's called that.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking of, now we're going to shoot after doing the sitcom. I now have a really good crew. I've got a great director, Scott Breitbarth, who directed the sitcom, and he's going to direct and edit this out. And we're going to have 4 6K cameras. We're going to limit the audience so we can actually go and take over part of the audience, that we can put the tripods, get the cameras in the right positions. We're going to do 2 shows instead of 1 in the same night in May. And we're going to call this one Properly Exposed.
Properly exposed.
I think that might be the.
Did you? Hopefully that will be the name. I pray that it will be.
It might be.
And
I was thinking of
like,
deleting the old one, but
all
I'm thinking I'm
fucked
going
up.
to keep the old one.
Yeah. Well, the thing too is, comedians usually do like a couple of nights, right? And then they kind of edit it together.
Normally, yeah. Like I heard a podcast, I think it was one of Barry Katz when he was interviewing Dane Cook, and Dane was talking about his Las Vegas one, that he literally edited, like his energy was so different on one night versus the other. And so was the audience, that his energy was up the first night, but the audience wasn't feeling it. So he took all the setups from Friday, but all the punchlines were from Saturday.
Hilarious.
And it's literally two different audiences.
So weird. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So what we're going to do for this one is we're going to do a 6 o'clock and an 8 o'clock show. And I'm not going to have an opening act or anything, because I'm putting all the money into the crew, not into any other comics, but we're going to do one more screening of the sitcom, because in the last few months, we've had a lot of interest and a lot of people have been asking if they can see it. I don't want to just send out links and let people watch it. So we'll do one live. That'll be I'll open for the sitcom. Like I'll do an hour, show the sitcom for 22 and a half minutes. And then that'll be the show.
Oh, that's so cool. Let's see a little bit of your stand-up here just to break things up.
One time I'm at a hotel, and it's like 8:30 in the morning, and I hear this banging. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, is that housekeeping? They're not saying anything. And then it stops. I'm like, okay, go back to bed. About 5 minutes later, this time I hear a voice. This guy goes, help, I'm stuck in 1906, and I'm in the bathroom. Oh, someone's calling me from the past. Oh, wait a minute. 1906, they called it the water closet. I'm in room 1908. This guy's stuck in the crapper. I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to help him. So I call the front desk, because that's as far as I'm going to go. And I call the front desk. I'm like, hi, there's a guy stuck in 1906, and he's in the bathroom. And she goes, sir, 1906, they called it a water closet.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's just part one. You've got to.
I know.
Subscribe for part two.
Yeah, you got to go to the YouTube channel for part two. Yeah. So what do you think about when you moved to Seattle? Did you get the Seattle freeze?
You mean people thinking that because I'm not from here, that I don't belong? Yeah. I moved here in 2009.
Yeah. And
Bainbridge Island is kind of a bedroom community for Seattle. It's 35-minute ferry ride across. A lot of Amazon employees, Microsoft employees live over here and commute on the ferry. And at the very beginning, the advantage I had, my wife got it more than I did, because I went back to LA for 3 days every week for the first 6 months, because excuse me, I didn't tell CBS that I moved. So I was going back every Saturday to do the car show. Mm-hmm. And because I started doing a different car show on KFWB, which was a little AM station that's now, I think, Korean jazz oldies. I forget what it is.
One of my favorites.
And I was just flying down. Mm-hmm. At Thursday, we did a pre-recorded segment with a guy named Brian Cooley from CNET, who's an awesome car tech guy. Mm-hmm. And then I would do the live show on Saturday. And finally, I had like a nervous breakdown from living a lie, like on the air.
Did you have to make up stuff?
I went to the program director. He's like, dude, it's radio. You don't have to be in the studio. But the technology wasn't like this yet.
Yeah.
And so I had to put an ISDN line at my house, and I had like a little studio with an ISDN dial-up line. And that took forever to even explain what ISDN was to the local phone company, because they're like, we got to dust off William. We haven't installed one of these in 10 years. And this old guy gets on the phone. I remember back when Bainbridge has more ISDN lines than anywhere because of all the Microsoft employees.
And only he knows where they're hidden.
Yeah. And there was literally the street across from me, there was an ISDN box that they were able to tap into and hook me up.
Wow.
Which was insane.
Now, you started a show like this during the pandemic as well, right?
Yeah. When I lived in New Orleans, I did a show called Dead Air Live on Cox Cable Channel 8, which was great because it was between NBC and Fox. Like 7 was Fox and 9 was NBC, I think. And all my show was my head, kind of like this, but bigger. and I would just take calls for half an hour. And if people didn't call, I would just riff, but people called, and I had weird people would call. And so it became pretty popular. And then I decided, you know what, the pandemic happened. And I'm like, well, I'm stuck in my house. And on Friday the 13th, I went on Facebook and I said, I'm just going to start doing that show again. And then I reconnected with some old friends, and I started doing 7 days a week.
Was that March 13th?
It was. We just had the anniversary.
You and I probably started the exact same day, even. The same thing. I would try to do it every day. I was doing it every day,
Yeah.
but I was doing noon, and you were doing like 5 o'clock or something like that.
I was doing kind of whenever my wife would let me, because either we were going for walks. We did a lot of walks with the dogs, so we could still do that and get out of the house. But I would try to do 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock sometimes. But then I started getting a lot of East Coast people, 'cause being from Pittsburgh. A lot of my friends would start tuning in, but they're like, I don't want to tune in at 11 p.m. So I started doing 5 o'clock West Coast, 8 o'clock East Coast. And then my good friend Eric Schemer, he was my original comedy partner when I first started stand-up. We started working on an idea to do some shows together. And now we've just kind of whittled it down. I do the car show that I did here in Seattle with a guy named Rafi, who actually plays Tony in the sitcom, the foreign guy who's not really a foreign guy. So we did one called Clutch Radio every Saturday morning, and we just changed the name of it to Car Yada because there was a lot of clutches out there. We couldn't copyright Clutch Radio, couldn't get clutchradio.com. There it is, Car Yada. And then Monday nights, we do a thing called the Eridan Film Festival, where each week we have a bunch of regulars, and we put them on a wheel. Not them physically, obviously. Put their name on a wheel, and we spin the wheel, and they get to pick the film for the following that we're going to watch the following week. And then we just talk about the movie, and then we rank the film. So,
do they ever pick something that's just annoying?
Oh yeah. Oh, we've had some movies. We have this one guy, Adam, who literally, I've known Adam since New Orleans. He used to be a regular caller on the New Orleans show, and we reconnected because he ended up moving up here in the Seattle area. I think was in Olympia when I first moved here, and he's on the show. He hates everything, which we joke with him. Like we give it a score from 1 to 100, and he's given things a 1.
Oh no!
And and I get it. He if you don't like it, why give it anything higher?
Yeah,
because he wanted to give a 0. I said, no, it's 1 to 100. So you have to give at least a 1. And the musical Cats that was out a few years ago, he gave that a 1. And so now everything he gives, like if he gives something a 30, we go, he gave it 30 cats. This movie's 30 times better than Cats. But we do get, what's more annoying, I think, is when you pick your own movie. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. I love time travel movies. It's not a good movie. I know that.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorites, and they just trashed it. Like, oh wait, the guy hypnotized himself to travel through time. Then he sees a penny and he gets shot back, and they make fun of it, and it didn't score well. But Back to the Future is also one of my favorite movies, and it was our highest ranked movie up until a couple years ago. It got knocked down by Forrest Gump, I think, is our top movie now.
Oh, come on. Forrest
I know.
Gump.
We just did Private Parts. I said I'd never give a movie 100. Yeah. And after watching Private Parts for like the 100th time, I'm like, this movie's perfect.
Even today?
I love, yes. Even
the
today.
Howard Stern movie where he plays himself, which is just amazing.
Plays himself, and he does a good job acting. Yeah. Robin and Fred are great acting as themselves. But the key to that movie is Paul, I'm forgetting his name. Why am I forgetting his name?
Paul Rodriguez.
He just won the Golden Globe. For the Holdovers. Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti's in it? Really?
He plays his boss. Pig Vomit, they call him. And there's a whole scene where he's telling him how to say WNBC. Like you have to say WNBC. You have to say it a certain way. And it's just, he is so good in that movie. That was his first major film.
Wasn't that crazy how he had that walleye through the whole movie? That must have been some kind of special effect in the Holdovers.
It was, because he was on Howard Stern, and Howard said, oh my God, I worked with this guy. I never noticed he had a lazy eye this whole time. I
thought that when I'm watching the movie, they said about the walleye, and then I was like, wow, I never noticed he had a walleye like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute.
And it was a contact.
CGI. Oh, it was a contact. That's what I thought.
It was a contact.
I bet it was a little bit of both, though. Don't you think? Like maybe somewhere they enhanced it.
I would think they can do it. CGI is so amazing.
Do so much now. It's crazy. That's what's great about us is now we can play 20-year-olds because they can just CGI.
Have you seen the new Billy Joel song?
No.
His new song called "Turn the Lights Back On," and it starts with him today, and it goes back to like 70s Billy Joel and 80s Billy Joel singing a new song.
Oh, I gotta see it.
I recommend it highly.
I'll check it out.
Turn the lights back on, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel, turn the lights back on.
Louis Black.
How we doing?
Hi, Dan Rosenberg. How are you?
Oh, just great.
Yeah, you look like it.
Yeah, I'm really happy. What? What are we? I don't even know what we on. Are we on anything? Or is this? Yeah, I know. But this could be a fake thing. You know.
There's a cord.
Oh, excellent. I know. And it's
Plug
connected.
in.
Yeah, right. So what?
I don't know. It's
Corrected. It could be connected to a refrigerator at this point. I go, yeah, that's great.
Gets us into the festival for free. Anyway,
Absolutely.
let's be honest here. So, Louis, normal people don't do what we do. They know the comedy thing. What's wrong with you?
Boy.
Speechless?
Well, really, the list is endless. When you know what you want to know the truth?
Yeah.
As opposed to it being funny, and I could really
Let's be truthful. Let's open up. I'm like Barbara Walters. Cry, damn it.
when you have a mother who basically, when you get 4 A's and 2 B's, says, how come you got the B's? That's where comedy starts, okay? That's the beginning of it. It's someone who really enjoys learning from failure. You know how stupid that is as a gig? A gig in which the only way you learn is if you suck.
Yeah.
You know? And when you suck, you learn something. And if you don't suck, you really don't learn anything. So that's why I got into it.
That's good. It's like a prostitute. Same way.
It's exactly.
The more you suck, the more you learn.
Very nice. That's good.
We're tying it
I
all
can
in.
see how you got this job.
You see that?
Yeah.
You see what they're
Good
paying
you
me.
bounced back because I really was going into a blank mode there.
So when was that? Where were you in a comedy festival? What?
You have such production value. Like
Thanks, man.
I literally when we do either of our shows, I get on 5 minutes before. Eric luckily does all of our bumpers and things and makes it look cool. But yeah, you're good, man. This is good.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So that was, I think, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Laugh.com was George Carlin's Laugh.com and a guy named Neil Lieberman, who's America's original comedy coach.
Yeah.
He asked me, like, I was up there. So I'll give a little backstory of how I got into the festival. Mm-hmm. So I worked in New Orleans for a company called Fast Band Global Cast. Mm-hmm. And we were in 99, we were online 24 hours a day, live streaming. We had a camera on us from a studio on Bourbon Street. Mm-hmm. And we were playing independent music. Uh-huh. So, but we had like Dido, we had Mambo No. 5. We had Who Let the Dogs Out, before they were all hits.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we'd be playing a song, and if you liked the song, you could click a button and buy it digitally downloaded for 99 cents. Well, if anybody knows how time works, the iPod didn't come out until 2001, and this was in 1999. Mm. So needless to say, they were way ahead of their time. The company went under after about 18 months or so. But in the transition, they signed with the Improv, a comedy club chain, to do their websites. And they said, okay, we're going to take you off the air and we're going to have you be our head of comedic operations, I think is what they called me. And they said, so you're going to help us get this Improv thing set up. And because a guy from New Orleans had actually bought the Improv for a little while, the guy that Al Copeland, who started Popeye's Chicken. When I think more about it, it's insane that the Popeye Chicken guy bought the Improv. So then they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I need to go to the comedy festivals because, that's how we get known. So send me to Aspen and send me to Montreal. And they're like, okay. So I got to go to the Aspen Festival in 2000. I was there when Martin Short was interviewing Jerry Lewis, and Jerry Lewis made the comment about there are no funny women, which got blown out of proportion because it's not exactly what he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically said that he didn't have all his favorite comedians, none of them were women. But he didn't say there's no funny women. He just said that's just his personal taste.
Well, Jerry Seinfeld made a whole lot of money, so now he feels like he can say
Did I say
whatever the hell
Seinfeld?
he
I meant
wants.
Jerry Lewis. Not Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Lewis. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
I said
Seinfeld, it seems like, but Seinfeld just says what's on his mind. Jerry Lewis started to get a little bit, all the things that have come out about Jerry Lewis, like you can totally see why he might be like that.
Yeah. But it was Martin Short interviewing Jerry Lewis.
Yes.
All
There's a lot of Jerrys. There's a lot of Jerrys in comedy.
And so I went to Montreal and I knew nobody, and the power just went out or something here. That was weird.
Maybe Jerry Lewis, maybe Jerry Seinfeld did it, because he's got a lot of power, and we were like dissing on him for something he did not do. It was a Naomi Wolf, Naomi Klein moment, right?
Yeah,
talking
exactly.
About that. Doppelganger. Yep.
So I go to the festival. I don't know anybody. I start meeting people. It's actually where I met Barry Katz for the first time. And everyone's there. And I schmoozed with there's a online magazine, used to be called Shecky Magazine. I don't know if you remember that. I think it's Brian McKim and Tracy Skeen ran it. I don't think I know. And so I'd hang out with them, and I just met a bunch of people, and I got to perform at one of the shows. I wasn't part of the festival, but I got asked to be on a show. So the next year I go back, and every year after, I went for about 7 years. I got to perform every year, and I've never auditioned for Montreal, and I performed 7 years.
That's great.
And I actually got to MC Best of the Fest a couple of times, and I crashed it. And that year, Neil Lieberman, who was running Laugh.com, said, "Hey, do you want to do some comedy interviews with comedians? I'll just pull people aside." And I interviewed Dave Foley. All of the kids in the hall were there. I interviewed all of them. I think Dane Cook. I know there was a bunch of people I interviewed, and I have no idea where the tapes went. I was only given Louis Black and Dave Foley for some reason. So somewhere there are tapes of me interviewing, and they're much better quality. That's like a copy of a copy of a copy that I have, that I put on YouTube. Cool. That was probably the first thing I ever put on YouTube when it first came out. But that's what that was. And I was just playing basketball right before. That's why I'm in a t-shirt with the hat on backwards. Mm-hmm. I still had hair, so I wasn't always wearing a hat. And they handed me the Laugh.com hat, and they said, "Here, go interview Louis. We got Louis Black." And that's not a laugh track. People are always like, "Why'd you put a laugh track on there?" Louis's manager.
People were laughing.
Yeah, his managers were standing there, so they made sure that they were laughing loudly for every one of his interviews.
Have you always been able to make a living in the entertainment field? I mean, you've been all over the place. No,
I've done both. Mm-hmm. I've been in the car industry. My father owned an auto parts store. His father owned a car lot and an auto recycling business. So the car business has always sucked me back in as my day job. Mm-hmm. And that's why the sitcom is about a used car salesman with a rock star dad. I didn't have a rock star dad, but I have history with being in the car industry.
Oh, so okay, all right. This sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I went to a place once, and the guy tried to convince me to get a rub. I wanted to get a toupee, and whose alarm is going off? That's not even the phone ringing. That's like somebody set their alarm. It's 9 o'clock. I guess so. It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. Some guy's alarm just went off.
All right. So we were talking about your sitcom. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but you shot it already, right? The pilot, as you said.
I started writing this years ago.
Yeah. And
one night I'm at a Rick Springfield concert with a buddy of mine. And, we got some tickets from the local radio station in LA. I think we're at the Universal Amphitheater. I don't think it exists anymore. And, I'm in my 30s at this point, and Rick's up on stage in his 50s. He's got no shirt on. Women are going crazy. And I just look at my bike, man, this guy's old enough to be my dad. Can you imagine my dad having women jump all over him? And I go, wait a minute. That's a good idea for a sitcom, because the dads are always overweight and balding. What if the kid's overweight and balding, and the dad's got a nice head of hair and he's thin and he's fit?
I love that.
And so the original show was called Dan's Dad, and it was all about this guy who's just a salesman. He wasn't even a car salesman. It was like internet services or long distance or something originally. And he had a hot dad who had been divorced a bunch of times, but the hot dad was always hitting on women, and he was kind of slimy. And during the pandemic, I decided to do some table reads with a bunch of local actors. We did like a Zoom table read of a bunch of episodes. And I started realizing this guy, especially with the Me Too movement, this is not a character people would want to see on a show anymore. So my original comedy partner, Eric, and I got back together and kind of wrote we came up with a new concept of, well, what if the dad is a rock star? Like, let's play on that, because then we're on him and he's allowed to be the rock star that he is. So we rewrote the whole thing. Eric came up with It's a Lot as the name of the show, because it kind of has a double name, because like the whole
lot.
It's a car lot, but Dan's life, like we have a poster that we did for some of the screenings that Scott, our director, designed. And it's like, he's a used car salesman. His dad's a rock star. He misses ex-girlfriend. The new guy at work is stealing his customers. It's a lot. Like, he's got a lot going on. So it's got multiple meanings. And
Cool.
I was listening to a Barry Katz podcast he was interviewing Greg Garcia, the creator of My Name is Earl and a bunch of other shows. And we had a similar trajectory. He moved to LA when he was like 22. I'm like, I moved to LA when I was 22, and he wanted to be a stand-up. He always thought he wanted to be a stand-up, but he got into writing. I'm like, I always wanted to be a writer. I got into stand-up. And so he wanted to do stand-up by 50. And so I decided I wanted to try to do a sitcom by 50.
I love it.
And that's what I started working on it. And then the pandemic happened, which ended up being, a blessing in disguise, because Eric and I rewrote it, and I was able to make contact with Rick Springfield. Right before the pandemic, I paid $350 to buy a backstage VIP pass when he was here in Seattle, so I could hand him the script and talk to him.
That's
and then
good.
4 years later,
Yeah.
this past summer, I was his guest at his concert, sitting in the 5th row with free tickets for me and my director and videographer and stuff.
And he's a longtime actor too, so it's great.
He was fantastic. I mean, there's a scene where he calls me, and I just wanted him doing something busy while he's talking to me, something that would be funny. Like, I thought he's sitting with one of those silver shade things, sunning outside in Seattle, and working on his tan. And then Scott, our director, was like, what if we have like a blender, you're just throwing weird like cactuses and all this weird stuff, and that's why you look young, because all this smoothie you make. And this is on a Zoom call with Rick, and he just goes, what if I'm going to town with some nose clippers? I'm like, even better. And the day we were shooting, we shot his stuff down in Calabasas. We shot everything else up here, but we went down to shoot for a day with him. And I'm freaking out because I forgot to bring nose clippers. And I'm talking to one of the PAs, and she just bought a bathrobe that he needed to be using. I'm like, oh, I need nose clippers. I need nose clippers. And she never responded. And then he showed up, and he just gets a smile on his face. He pulls out his pocket, he goes, I got my nose clippers.
That's great.
He brought his own
An
nose
actor
clippers.
prepares.
Yes.
An actor is prepared. So what is it like shooting things in Seattle as opposed to shooting things in Los Angeles or Calabasas or wherever?
So Seattle, we shot 6 days here in the Seattle area, most of it on Bainbridge, some of it in Paulsbo, which is right over the bridge from Bainbridge.
Yeah.
There's a dealership there that let us use the dealership for a few days. It was weird. I wanted to use the dealership when they were closed and shoot it overnight, but that would have added some expense because of the lighting.
Yeah.
We'd have to bring in to make it look like daytime. And the owner of the dealership, just shoot it when we're open. He's like, who cares? He thought it's excitement, people, but it was hard to do.
It's hard to do, right? Yeah, I've done that.
It's hard to shoot while they're open, and we had to like tell them to turn the radio off a bunch of times. They were super nice, and it worked out great. But we shot there, I think, 3 different days, and we shot on Bainbridge Island 3 different days. We actually have a scene we didn't use. It's an opening scene my character's having a dream, and he wakes up after having this dream. And it's his character Leah that he's obsessed with, and it's based on a song from a guy named Donnie Iris, Leah. It's a song from the 80s. I went to high school with his daughter, and so I wanted to write this show around this song for years, and then I kept the name Leah for the girl. And we actually shot an evening with the rock star Tiffany.
Oh my God, no way. I think we're alone now.
Yes. We had Tiffany and we had Rick Springfield. So it was
oh my God.
And we also have Dean Phillips plays the boss at the car lot. Dean was on SNL for a couple of years. And Franklin Vanderbilt, who is Lenny Kravitz's drummer, He's the drummer.
Oh
in
man,
the
this
scene.
sounds great. This show.
Yeah, he's Rick's drummer. But yeah, it was we had to drop this. It didn't work. The chemistry, not the chemistry between me and Tiffany. I thought
Yeah.
she was great. I mean, there was a point where I'm sitting there for like an hour and a half at a dinner table at a restaurant with Tiffany.
Yeah.
And at some point, your 15-year-old self kicks in, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, I'm sitting at dinner with Tiffany."
Yeah.
But there weren't enough jokes in that scene,
Really.
and it wasn't strong enough of a start. And luckily, we have Barry Katz involved because he really did help.
Was he on the set?
In LA, he was there the whole day. Yeah,
That's cool.
We used his car actually. His car is what Rick's car was, and Rick's manager, just while we're shooting, he goes, "So I assume you sold him this car?" And I thought he meant I sold the car to Barry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "No," I said, Barry's had this car. I think it was like a family member. It was this really nice Lexus convertible. And he goes, No, I meant your character sold it to Rick's character. I go, "Oh, well, of course I did.
good
Of course
idea.
he'd buy a car for me."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, yeah." So we decided we digitally put in the license plate frame of Lenny's Super Mega Autoplex is the name of the dealership. It wasn't on the car. So my friend Richard Malzahn, I mentioned earlier, he did a lot of visual effects for the show.
Did he? That's cool.
Like changing the name. And
That was
fixing
cool
some
in
things.
your special where he did a special effect.
Yeah, we had a whole plan of what we were going to do originally.
Yeah.
I was going to wear this really ugly jacket
Yeah.
and have he was going to have the phone booth from Bill and Ted's pop down.
Oh my
And
God.
then I was going to get out of the phone booth and say, "Hey, don't do the Helen Keller joke, no matter what you do. Don't do that. Trust me,
Yeah,
do not do
yeah.
the Helen Keller joke." And I told you not to wear that jacket. And then
Would enough people get it? Like, are there enough people
I don't know.
that would know?
Yeah, so we just
You're
did
like,
a little.
sometimes you got to realize I am a film buff and I know every line from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And maybe my audience doesn't.
Yeah,
But
I'm realizing
why are they
there's
talking
certain-
about Helen Keller jokes? You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, so the editing is something I've learned a lot about. Like, our first cut of the sitcom, we did about 8 screenings in front of audiences just to get responses, and we recorded the audience and we counted, how many laughs per minute we were getting. And the first cut was 35 minutes, and the final cut now, what we call the Pittsburgh cut, because it's the version we showed in Pittsburgh, which is to this day the best version, is 22 and a half. So it's down to normal sitcom size.
That's great. I love that you're still connected to Pittsburgh, and you've moved around, but you're connected to all the different places, and I think that's really cool. Do you go? What are the audiences like in Pittsburgh? Because we haven't had anybody really talk about that on the show.
The last stand-up I did in Pittsburgh was at the Funny Bone, because that's where I started. Funny Bone in Pittsburgh was actually the original Funny Bone. That was the first Funny Bone that existed.
Really?
They started. There was 5 guys that started it. Sadly, one of the founders, Jeff Schneider, just passed away not too recently. Not too recently? Not too long ago.
Not too
It was
recently.
That's a weird saying.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And I don't do a lot of political material, but I've gone through old tapes. I found a bunch of my little mini DVs, so I had to figure out a way to watch them. And I have a bunch of sets from there, including the last one. And I realized, the political climate is so different than it used to be. You could make fun of anybody politically, and everybody laughed. You can make fun of either side. Now it's so polarized that I don't even touch politics. But for the screening, it was a lot of friends and family, but it was also, there were 5 women that drove from Michigan to Pittsburgh to see the sitcom pilot because it was Rick Springfield. They were his fans.
Oh my God, that's so great.
Yeah. And what I also love is I sent Rick an email on my flight home. I said, "Hey, we just did a screening in Pittsburgh, and 5 of your fans drove from Michigan to watch this." And I said, "You've got great fans." And instead of saying, "Oh, that's cool," he's like, "Did they laugh?" It's all about the product.
All about
did
the
they
product.
laugh?
I love it. I was saying in the beginning, I know Liam, his son, and he is one of the best actors I know. They're a very talented family. So it's really cool that you got him involved in that. We have to end the show, unfortunately.
What? Oh my God, that went fast.
I know. But
Wow.
we're at that point. But there's so much to talk about with you. It's so interesting. And when do you think we'll be able? I guess we won't be able to see this. Are you going to screen in LA or any place, Seattle, any places that our hummingbirds
we
are?
did one screen in LA at the Kibitz Room at Cantor's Deli in front of a bunch of comedians, and that didn't go well.
Oh, that sounds like a good time.
I wanted some bitter comics to see it, because if it got good response from people that are jaded in LA comics, then that's a good thing.
You're really asking for it, though.
I know. Right now, we've had a few pitches. So far, the two networks we've talked to both agreed to watch it, which is, to me, that's a win right off the bat, even if they watch it.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we find a home for it sometime soon. My goal is to keep it here in town and keep it, local. But obviously, if they offer something else, I might do something else, but I'd love to keep it here and just get Rick when he's in town, or fly it on there when we need to use him. So that's where it's at right now. It's just kind of in the shopping phase, but we do have, it's just amazing to have the completed pilot. I mean, it's
a great thing to have.
We shot it in 6K, and it's been color corrected, and visual effects are done, and it's been a long process.
Oh my God. I look forward to that. All right. So dance break, end of the show. I've got a Seattle song for you. You're going to like it. You're going to like it. I think. I don't know. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this band, because they're called the HCC, the Hindley Street Country Club. These are them. They're in Australia, and they've got together. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They're in this town or city called Adelaide in. I've never been to Australia, but it looks like a really nice city.
That's where Rick Springfield's from, so this all ties in.
Yeah,
he's from Australia.
Is he from Australia?
Yeah, he's Australian,
and he might be from Adelaide. Who knows? So yeah, there's always, as you say with your number 147, there are all these weird coincidences that happen for sure. This band has been releasing a cover song once a week for a long time. I don't know. Every Friday on YouTube at 8 a.m. ACDT, which I don't know what that time is, but anyway, every week. And they've got these incredible covers on there. We played one on Tuesday as well of Live and Let Die. They have 940,000 subscribers globally, over 1 billion views across all different platforms. So we're going to enjoy their cover song of a Seattle band called Heart. Thanks so much, Dan, for being on the show, because we're not going to be able to talk to you. But I hope you'll come on the show again sometime. And we really look forward to your pilot and also your next special. If there's anything you need from the Hummingbirds, we have quite a network out there, and we can help you out, be of service, as they say.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Let's do this thing. Dance break time.
Thank you.
So strong, a greater man came to me. Never seen eyes so blue, I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me, yeah. Come on home, girl, it said with a smile. You don't have to love me, and let's get high a while. It's never think we'd never let the spell last forever. For summer lover past her fall, tried to realize it all. Mama says she's worried, growing up in a hurry, yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Thanks, Dan, for all your insights and humor. And we'll all see you all next week. All right.
My girl should be at home, but try to understand.
Gotta say Magic Man.